And now hit share. There we go. Okay. I think I got it. So Kirsten, give me a thumbs up if everybody sees the full screen, because I can still see you. Very good. Thank you. All right. Not quite at the beginning. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. This is a presentation of the Tower Garden by Juice Plus. I am Holly Bromley. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology, and I am a certified arborist and horticultural consultant. And I absolutely love the Tower Garden. I was introduced to it before it was ever hit the market for home development, and I just thrilled me to see what we could do of gardening in a small space. So I'm going to go through this presentation and start with the why before I go through the what, because I think there's a really good compelling reason why tower gardening is such a good idea. So first, I'd like to talk about our food supply. How is our food grown, and how far did it have to travel from the field to our table? Why is this important? Well, first of all, soil depletion is a huge issue these days. When you have farmlands, rich Salinas Valley farmlands are in the Midwest, where they've been doing farming for decade upon decade upon decade, every time plants take up mineral nutrients in the soil, you have less and less of those minerals in the soil. So when you have a crop like broccoli, for example, that is known to be rich in things like calcium and iron, if there's less calcium and iron in the soil, that means that the broccoli we're growing today is far less nutrient dense than it was, say, 50 or 100 years ago. Also, things like chemical fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and things that are applied to the crops, that those residuals are left in our food. And then there's also biologic contamination. Things like E. coli, salmonella, listeria, even organic farming has problems from time to time with that kind of contamination, because when you're doing organic farming and using things like animal waste and decomposition, those are great environments for some of these contaminants to grow in. So as safe as we try to make our food supply, when we're mass producing things, that is always a concern. So then there's a transportation issue from field to table. First, they have to pick it, pack it on the trucks, and sometimes it's put onto trains. My husband is a conductor for this particular company. It goes across the country, sometimes across the world. Once it gets off the train, you have to ship it to the distribution center, where it's stored until it's put out to grocery stores, which then put it on the shelves, which then we purchase it, and we hope doesn't turn into a science experiment along the way. And I know that all of us are guilty of those veggie drawer science experiments. So from the time it was picked to the time it's cooked and reaches the table, every single day that goes by, there is a nutritional degradation, so that the food is not as nutrient dense by the time it hits the table as it was when it was grown in the field. Add to that a lot of times field grown crops are not picked ripe. They pick them before they're ripe so that they will transport and store better. So you do not have peak of ripeness, which means you don't have peak nutritional quality to begin with. So because of these factors, interest in gardening is increasing every day, but sometimes there's problems. But we do get, if we do the gardening, we get safe, nutritious food. We know how it's grown. We get to save money. We get to eat local, and we get sustainable, environmentally responsible growing. But with that, we have the problem that not everybody has the room, the time, the experience, the environment to grow their own garden. And even at that, it's pretty seasonal. So with that, I'd like to introduce the tower garden. Now, the tower garden's magnificent. It has two forms now, the home and the flex, and we'll get to that shortly. First, tower garden was innovated at Epcot Center, Florida. And Epcot Center has been known for decades to be a source of innovation for how to grow a growing planet, big population, and they do things like transportation, housing, and even growing. How do you grow a growing or feed a growing planet with limited resources, limited space, limited time to get the food to people? So that's where that came from. Now, Tim Blank was a horticulturist at Epcot Center who helped develop those technologies and then stepped out on his own to develop future growing so that he could bring that technology into the home and into other places. Now this video is going to show you why Tower Garden is so magnificent. It's a 4-week time lapse showing how fast these things actually grow from the time the seedlings are put in until you get to harvest your veggies. That's only 4 weeks, and that's magnificent. As I said, it was developed at Epcot Center, but these were researched at the University of Mississippi, where it was found that they actually do grow 30% higher yield. So that your tomatoes and your squash and things like peppers are going to have 30% higher yield with 30% growing time. And what's magnificent, I live in a desert, up to 90% less water. All of the water is recycled within the unit and not lost to the soil, to gravitational pull, or what can't be taken up by the plant. And it's much less loss to the environment too. So it's really economical, it is environmentally sound, and it uses a lot less resources. So does it really grow that well? Well, this is my 2nd year growing these. It was in a greenhouse. I started January 31st with seedlings. You can see the back tower has seedlings already in it, and then there is a little pallet of plants on the back tower that then went the next day into the front tower. I had to get a few more of those little black cups to put the net pots to put the plants in. Now this is still winter, so from January 31st to February 27th, which is only 4 weeks, you can see how fast those things grew. And that is with the limiting resource of the light not being as strong as it is during the normal growing season. This shows that in June, I had little seedlings that in the top left corner that I put into the tower, and less than a week later, you can see below how much it grew, and 2 weeks later, they're very close to harvest. So they really do grow as fast as that time lapse shows. How does the Tower Garden work? Well, first of all, you develop your seedlings, you start your seedlings in this tray, and when they're germinated, and then you have roots starting to stick into the bottom of the rock wool substrate, or sometimes now people use a coconut pod, then you can transplant it into the Tower Garden. The Tower Garden is developed so that there is a either 13 or 20 gallon tank at the bottom, depending on which model you buy. The pump pumps the water to the top where it rains down over the roots. You can see here's at the top. From there, you put on what's called a shower cap that distributes it off to the sides. And the water flows over the roots. The roots are hanging in a column of air. Now, this is one of the keys to why these grow so fast and the plants are so healthy. Everybody learns in 2nd grade that plants absolutely produce oxygen for us to breathe, but they don't realize, it's not taught, that roots need oxygen, and they need oxygen from the environment. So when you grow plants in the ground, the only oxygen those roots get is the oxygen that can permeate the soil down in the soil particle space. So in the Tower Garden, there's an abundance of oxygen around the roots for healthy metabolism of the plant growth. You have optimum nutrients, optimum water, you put it in sunshine for optimum sun, and you have the perfect growing environment. And that's why they grow so well. Now, what is the nutrient solution? Well, the Tower Tonic comes in A and B, and the reason for that is chemically they have positive and negatively charged ions in the different ones. If you put it together, the minerals would precipitate out and you would have chunks in the bottom. So we keep it separate until we add it to the water. But these minerals are pure earth and sea minerals. Plants need minerals. They're called essential micronutrients and essential macronutrients, depending on how much the plant needs for healthy growth. When people talk about organic growing, what organic growing does is help to break down the organic molecules from either animal waste or decomposing leaf and plant matter, and all of that helps to return the minerals back to the soil. It's not that the plants need the organic compounds. What they need is the minerals in those organic compounds. So this puts a perfect balance of minerals right into the water where they're easily accepted by the plants for optimum growth. Can we call it organic? No, because minerals are by definition not organic. So there's 2 models now available in the Tower Garden, the Home and the Flex. First of all, the Tower Garden Home is our brand new Tower Garden model developed specifically for growing indoors. It's smaller than the Flex that we started with. You can grow up to 32 plants now in the Tower Garden Home. It is an all-inclusive kit for indoor growing. It has a 13-gallon tank with a water level indicator and only a 24-inch base. So when I need to fill mine up, I can roll it out of the room it's in, roll it to the kitchen or the bathroom and fill it up with water. Fits easily through any doorway. It's super affordable because we do interest-free financing. It's $80.83 or $80.83 per month for 12 months. And after that, it's nothing but return on investment. I've owned mine outright for years now. And so for the cost of seeds and a few minerals, I get an abundance of growth. So you can see for less than $2.75 a day, you can grow an abundance of fresh greens and herbs, and it's just fantastic. Now the Tower Garden Flex was the original model. This is where you can grow your vegetables, herbs, fruits, and flowers outdoors. You get everything you need to start growing with up to 20 full-size plants that can fit into it, but you can customize this. You can add on extensions such as the baby greens extension or put 8 additional plants for 28. It has a 30-inch base instead of a 24-inch base and holds 20 gallons, which makes it better for outdoor growing. You can grow from 20 to 28, even 56 plants in your Tower Garden Flex. It's $51.67 per month for 12 months, interest-free financing. It makes it super affordable to get started. And then you can expand it at any time. You can add wheels, you could add lights for indoor growing, you can add more plant extensions. So it's a really great way to start out with the Tower Garden and just expand it as you like. So what can you grow in your Tower Garden Flex? We talked about Tower Garden Home, the indoor model, is mostly for greens and herbs. The outdoor model, where you have more space and room, these are all plants that I have grown myself. The peppers, chard, tomatoes, and squash all grow magnificently in the Tower Garden. I've grown also cucumbers and all kinds of things. This was an example of how I shopped off my Tower Garden. We were going camping, so I went shopping and picked. Now that's only a fraction of the kale and a fraction of the lettuce I harvested, but I took all the veggies with us camping. The tomatoes were not quite ripe, but I was impatient. I didn't want them to ripen while I was gone, so I picked them and took them camping. I love this picture because this one is a very good friend of mine. She did an experiment on her own where she started with 12 Roma tomato plants. She put 4 into her 2 towers and 8 plants outside. And this is a magnificent example of how well the Tower Garden grows, because on one day she went out and harvested all of her Roma tomatoes, and the basket on the left was from the 4 tomato plants she had in the Tower Garden, and the tomato harvest on the right, that measly little tomato harvest, was from the 8 plants she had growing in the dirt. So that shows that the amount that you harvest from your Tower Garden is so much superior to soil gardening. And I think personally that takes away a lot of the frustrations we get when we are out gardening. So what you cannot grow. First of all, vines such as blackberries and raspberries cannot go into the Tower Garden. Root crops such as beets, carrots, onions, potatoes, and such cannot be grown in the Tower Garden either. Now, as a traditional dirt gardener myself, because I've taken all of my lettuces and herbs and tomatoes and squash out of my dirt garden, I have a lot more space out in my raised beds for things like the root crops, and I converted one of my beds to a blackberry bed and one to a raspberry bed, so I have so much more room. You can't grow very large plants like corn or rhubarb either, so save that for dirt if you want to grow those. So here's 11 good reasons to own your own Tower Garden. If you already garden, it expands your gardening capability. I was surprised how much it did for me because I have 8 raised beds. You get to have your very own farmer's market right outside your door. You get to eat as local as possible. You get children interested in food production. And this is super important because it is great when kids get to see where their food comes from, and when they watch it grow, they're more interested in eating it too. So significantly reduces the carbon footprint associated with food production. When you saw that supply chain and how much it takes to harvest and transport and refrigerate food, there is a significant carbon impact on the planet as well. You get to put an end to veggie door science experiments. I get to pick my produce fresh, straight from the tower, straight to the cutting board, and I don't lose any nutritional quality. It's easy and it's convenient. It's fresh produce that's always available and ready to prepare. I love just walking in the other room, and when I want a salad, pick as much as you want for that particular salad, and the rest is still growing and healthy on the vine. So no previous gardening experience required. They're super easy, and you'll see in a moment there's a great community available to you to help you with questions. Choose to customize your system for your personal needs and be in charge of your food supply. So here's a great reason too. You're never alone. There's a blog with lots of information on tower gardening, things from growing indoors, starting seeds, even recipes and things like that. But if you go to YouTube, you also have a really great, there's an official tower garden channel on YouTube. And so it has everything from how to harvest lettuce, how to put together your tower garden, how to get kids involved, the time lapse that I showed, all those things are right there. So you've got a wealth of resources. So here's me in front of one of my tower gardens outside, just one. I always grow two. You can see my tomatoes growing. That's probably in July. You can see incredible healthy romaine at top. As a matter of fact, it's getting too big. It's about to bolt, but no worries, because down on that deck, you can see a little black container. Those are the seedlings getting started so that I can put the next harvest. You just keep revolving your harvest, putting new plants in as the lettuces grow old, the tomatoes grow the whole season until they ripen. Things like kale, I've started seeds literally last year. I started kale seeds in October for my indoor garden, moved them to the outdoor garden, and grew that kale for one solid year, and it never went to seed. And I harvested, you can imagine, a couple pennies worth of kale seeds, and I was harvesting kale all year long. So that is my presentation on the Tower Garden by Juice Plus, inspiring healthy living around the world. So I'll stop the sharing and we'll unmute and we'll have a question and answer. So let's go back. All right, everybody. I hope that was informative and you enjoyed it. Does anybody have any questions?
Holly, do you want to keep the recording on?
Thank you for recording it too.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Recording on during the questions, or you want to stop the recording?
You know what? I'll go ahead and stop it. Thank you for saying something.